Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by on another dull and wet, rainy day that apparently might clear up later and get some sunshine. Still flipping cold though. Well, outside. Not inside now. It's nice and warm inside, which is good. Probably not a lot of long videos in the foreseeable future, simply because I've got a lot of other things on my plate. So time spent in here is limited. It won't go on like that forever, but just at the moment, shall we say. As far as I know, my daughter's down for the weekend, so over the weekend there won't be much going on to see. So, yeah, I just thought I'd the forgotten bush. This, because it lives down here, because there's nowhere else I can put it at the moment, which is not the best place for it, but tend to forget that this just keeps pushing out more and more blooms, and they get forgotten because of where the plant actually lives. But these are gorgeous blooms, bright daffodil yellow and a lovely honey scent. Honey with a hint of something that I haven't worked out what it is yet, but basically a honey scent. Not strong though, I do need to get my nose in there to smell that. Some blooms have come and gone, but yeah, it just keeps pushing out a few blooms here and there. But what I am very aware of is that there's new root growth starting, and that probably precedes some new canes. And this is in the pot it arrived in last year, so it hasn't been repotted. And to repot that is going to be a mess. Basically, to get this very tall, lopsided plant to stand up, I put it inside a clay pot with a load of grit for weight, and it still didn't do it. So I had to put it inside another pot with some more grit and a big rock in the bottom. So it's a very unstable plant. Nonetheless, when I take the pot that it's potted in out of this lot, I'm going to get grit all over the place, so it's going to be a messy one. But I think it's coming up to the time when it could do with some refreshed media. Doesn't need a huge big pot just because it's a big plant. Dendrobiums do like to be cozy, but I need to be able to get it into something that it's stable in, and that may well be the clay pot that it's actually stood in, minus the grit obviously. But yeah, I mean, this just keeps pushing out new flowers, and I'm pleased to have got some on what is a new acquisition, although it's obviously a mature plant. There was one of these at the Orchid Society last Friday in bloom. The plant was only a third of the size of this, tiny little plant in comparison, but it had twice as many blooms on, so it looked quite spectacular. But I wonder sometimes whether the dendrobiums that are capable of getting very, very large only do so in optimum conditions. Otherwise they do not necessarily grow full-size canes. That doesn't mean to say they don't flower well though, and that was a case in point. Right, what else was I going to say? This is one of my wildcat cheetah. That's got a nice spike pushing on. You shouldn't really be letting that flower because that's a recovery Oncidium type at the moment. Oncostelli, I think they're called officially. Although I've just had a coffee, that could have changed, as it does. But the other thing why I really picked the camera up was this thing down here. Well, this is an Epidendrum nocturnum, and the last cane it grew didn't grow too bad. It had quite a bit of bug damage, and this looks like a little, possibly a bit of cold damage on this. But it pushed out a spike, slowly but surely, and produced a most spectacular bloom that self-pollinated the next day, and it dropped. I didn't even get to see, I saw it for literally for a day, and then it was gone. And apparently this plant is prone to self-pollination, at which point the blooms collapse. So I didn't even get a picture of it, but I have seen it, and it's well worth waiting for. But the latest cane has started to spike. It's finished doing leaves now, and it's starting a spike. Now I will make absolutely certain this time that if and when a bloom opens, I'll film it and take a still of it so that I've got a record of it in case it does it again. But I've also found out that on occasions a spike can extend. That's not going to extend, I don't believe. It's it's gone brown. So I don't think there'll be any more from that cane, but there is a spike starting to form on this cane. It's also having a bit of root growth at the moment, quite a few growing tips on the roots, and this is absolutely jammed onto its bark. Roots have they've done the classic thing. As soon as they come in contact with the bark, they start to flatten and grab hold, and one of them has even pushed through the bark and come out the back next to the label there. It's actually found a hole and managed to get right through the back. Yeah, so I mean it's growing okay. New root growth. I'd like to see another cane starting, but there's no sign of one yet. No sign of a new cane yet, I don't think. But at the moment, it's a very young plant. You know, I mean, it's effectively got 3 canes. Well, 4 if you count that tiny little thing. But the progression on it's good. You know, it's gone from that to this, and now to this. So this is its best cane by far, twice the length of the old one. And the old one managed to push a bloom out, so this one should do okay. So that's one to come. Quite honestly, at the moment, there's more going than coming. It's just after that initial spring flush, there's quite a lot. I mean, the Jenkinsii is down to its last fading bloom. We won't see that again till the spring. Loddigesii, that's done the same thing. The Orengis fatuosa, that's been and gone now. The little Dendrobium moniliform, variegated one, that's had 2 pairs of flowers on it. This is doing growth at the moment, I believe. So a new cane up the centre of the shot and another new one here, plus a few roots pushing out in places, so that's in growth mode now. Yeah, so as I say, there's a lot more going than coming at the moment, but there are still plenty of things to come along. I mean, this managed to get its cane buried in Hercoglossum here. That's my Shelob Tolkien. These buds are starting to extend nicely now. They're nowhere near opening yet. They'll probably get almost twice as long as that before they open. And there's 2 more spikes on that plant pushing on behind. Hercoglossum's now got probably not all, but a fair few of its buds open. So I've got an Orchid Society meeting next Saturday. I might take this along. I haven't decided yet. Depends whether I can be bothered, of course. And unfortunately, the Sedaria japonica, or Phalaenopsis japonica, these blooms look like they're starting to go now. Not sure, but they seem to be starting to close. So that, quite honestly, wasn't anywhere near as long-lived as normal Phalaenopsis are, but then it is a species. I'm not absolutely certain they're going yet, but they to me, they just look different to what they did, say, a week ago. So we'll have to see how that goes. And I was very pleased, excuse me shuffling stuff around here and waggling the camera around, but I've got stuff to do. We all remember Libby, yeah, Libby's little garden or whatever it was, seemed to have disappeared. Well, I got a comment this morning, there could be a very good reason, and I wish her well, but she asked how Donald was doing. Well, you have to have been around a while to know what is meant by Donald, but basically it's one of my Miltoniopsis, Alexander, and it has bloomed recently, but it has got another, what I would call rather weak spike, but it's going to have another 2 blooms down the line again, so Donald will be back in the not too distant future. So there's not much else going on at the moment. There was one other thing I wanted to... No, it's gone. I got busy in my mind at the moment, and the busy bit is not in here, so it's taking second fiddle at the moment. Oh yes, the come on brain, Odontoglossum naevium. The spikes on this are pushing on nicely now. There's 4 currently. There's the 2 hanging out the side there, one heading up towards the glass down there, another one here, and there's another one started down there. So that's currently got 4 spikes on the go. They're a way off opening because these buds are still quite tiny. The blooms on that, if you can imagine, you'll have to use your imagination, are incredibly similar in colours to that, except for the petals and sepals are really thin and twisty and frilly. So it's a very attractive bloom when we get there. And I'm not getting it down, but out of the 3 vandas up here, if this flipping brassica would get out of the way with its enormous spike. The first vanda there is the orange one with the quite tightly clustered, relatively small but bright orange flowers. That's the one that had the problem in the winter. That's the one that has the huge purple tessellated blooms on. And the other one up in the corner that we haven't looked at for ages is the one that has the very, very large white flowers with the deep purple lip. And that one's just got a spike starting, so that'll be the first vanda spike of this year. It's just literally a nubbin down in, you know, in the leaf joint at the moment, so I wouldn't be able to show it if I got the thing down, which I'm not going to do. But this monster of a spike up here, I knew this was going to get out of hand. Now at the moment, although that's a mount, I can't put the mount upright on the rack, because if I did, the spike would touch the roof. So I'm having to hang it low down so that the weight of the plant tips it over at an angle so that that spike doesn't touch the roof. But that is a hell of a spike. I don't know how many blooms there's going to be on there, but I would say 6, maybe 7. I think the first time that bloomed last year it had 4, and they're enormous. They're typical brassicas, spider shape. Nice colours and fragrant and very large. From top to bottom they're 8 inches, but they're spidery. So it's like typical spider shape. You've got quite a small centre with great big long bits representing the legs, but that's coming down the line. It's a way off yet though, those buds are nowhere near big enough. So some things to come and some things that have gone. The things I'm dreading going, because they're such a show at the moment, is the Dendrobium nesta and the Dendrobium anosmum. But those are the first anosmum blooms I've ever had, so I'm appreciating them while they are here. And yeah, no fragrance in here today, nothing. I got a Sherry Baby out and these two that are both highly fragrant, not a light, it's just dull and cool. I mean, I haven't even managed to get up to 19 degrees in here yet. This is cool for this time of year. And because of this whole sequence of dull, cooler weather, my growing season's now shortened, because whereas things should be pushing on really well now with the extra day lengths and the extra heat, growth should be, really pushing on well, and it's slowed. So I'm going to have a restricted growing season. I'm losing about a month at the start of the season, which is not good. But you can't control the weather, and I certainly can't afford to generate heat, electrical heat, to actually raise the daytime temperatures. I still use my heater at night to stop it dropping down below 15. That's as low as I'm prepared to allow it this time of year. But yeah, we're not getting the day temperatures without a bit of sunshine. But hopefully that will change. It can't go on like this forever, but it seems to be just a whole succession of dull, miserable days. Even when it's not raining, it's still dull. We had a little bit of sun yesterday for about an hour, I think, and we may get some later on today. But without that sunshine, I don't get the daytime temperatures. So everything just ticks along. It's not putting on massive spurts of growth because the heat's not there. And even though some of my plants would prefer not to get that heat, like the Miltoniopsis, the majority of the things in here now could do with that daytime heat to push them on a sort of greater rate of knots. And that's another thing. So it's this time of year when I'd be feeding more frequently, perhaps upping my dosage rates and all stuff like that. Well, there's no point. Not at the moment, because the growth has slowed. There's no point in pouring the flipping stuff in there if it's not going to get used. So I'm holding off on slightly higher dosages and slightly higher frequencies. My mounts are only getting watered every other day because they're not drying, That's just literally because the daytime heat's not there. Hopefully it'll be back soon and things will kick off a bit better. So yeah, that's where I am at the moment, and I'll see you next time.